freedomslips.com. It is 10 p.m. Thursday evening, and we are here live on Studio A. Yeah, you've waited all week for the most cutting-edge topics and guests, and now it is time to deliver. That's right, it's the Stephen D. Kelly Show with your host, Stephen D. Kelly.
Oh boy. Okay, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. My name is Stephen D. Kelly. You are listening to Revolution Radio at www.freedomslips.com. It is Sunday evening, 7:04 in Southern California, about 90 degrees outside, still light. If you're in another place in the world, it's pretty warm here. Anyway, tonight our show is going to be about the recent nuclear treaty that was signed with Iran with the P5+1, they call it. This is a very important subject because it has a lot to do with peace in our lifetime and our ability to avoid nuclear conflagration in the Middle East. Anyway, it's a very complex issue. The treaty, of course, is going to go through a 60-day period where Congress and the Zionist lobby, of course, will do everything that they can to try to defeat this deal and hand a defeat to Obama and John Kerry. All of you that know me know that I'm no fan of either one of those two, but at the same time, I have to choose to support this deal because I believe that this is far superior than what would have happened if this did not take place. So the purpose of the show tonight is to examine the details of this issue, to try to counter any misconceptions about what this treaty involves and what it does not involve. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of propaganda and disinformation being circulated about this particular agreement. We also, obviously, I want to keep an open mind, of course, because we have to discuss possibilities of conflicting agendas and conflicting motives going on here. Okay, so I have with me tonight two guys who were referred to me by Press TV, which of course is the Iranian English language news network. Very, very important channel, but as you know, I spend quite a bit of time doing bits for them. And I did put out a request to Press TV to help me out and refer some people to me. I have to say I'm a little disappointed because out of the big long list of names that I had, several of them, of course, were Iranians who were actually involved in either nuclear issues or scientific issues or education, relatively high ranking. But they all declined, and I suspect that it's because this is definitely a volatile subject. It's a sensitive subject, and certainly Iranian nationals that might be living here in the USA or abroad may consider this something a little bit too dangerous to talk about. So I do want to welcome the people that did join me, and I will introduce them here very soon. But of course, I guess the thing that I really want to say here is that I try to keep an open mind with everything, and my impression is that this is a good deal. I obviously this may look as a defeat for AIPAC and the Israeli lobby, and certainly there is a very strong possibility that we may actually have a false flag attack inflicted upon us in order to derail this deal. Certainly, the next 60 days or less will be very scary time for this. Oh, Caleb is going to go away for a minute. Go ahead, Caleb. Go ahead. I'll wait for you. Anyway. Oh wow, that was quick. All right. Anyway. I want to first of all, I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening tonight. Shout out to Shrew if you're out there listening. I promised I would give a shout out to one of my fans. And I have the two people I have with me right now, again, who've both been on featured in Press TV. I have, and help me if I pronounce your name wrong, but first I'm going to introduce Caleb Maupin. Caleb, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
That's right, Caleb Maupin.
All right. Now, Caleb, do me a favor, real quick, in just a sentence or two. Just tell us who you are, what you're all about, and what brings you to this show. Besides my calling you to come and do this, what motivates you to want to be part of this?
Well, I'm a radical journalist and political analyst. I've done a lot of activism in opposing wars. I do a lot of journalism exposing the lies of, the Wall Street media and the deceptions that they put out. And I've been to Iran on 2 different occasions. And so I hope to get on here and kind of refute some of the falsehoods that people are hearing in the conversation surrounding this deal.
Hey, pardon me, guys. I think I've got our other guest on the line. Hang on just a second. Oh, he didn't answer. Jeez, I swear. I'm getting all these funny calls. We're one of the guys that was supposed to be on the air is not here. Caleb, thank you for that. I'm sorry for the phone call and the interruption.
No worries.
That's really cool. I think that it's really nice that you were there a couple times so that you can give us a little perspective that that's someone that hasn't been there. Now, the other person here is with us right now is, again, I hope I get your name correct, is Trevor Labonte. Is that right, or is it Labonte?
Labonte.
Labonte. Wow, 3 different variations I can try there. All right, listen, I'm sorry for that, but I want to welcome you to the show. And you've also been on Press TV quite a bit. Naturally, you're a friend of mine on Facebook, and I saw that you had a recent interview with Press TV where you had basically said that Israel was incapable of launching a significant attack on Iran, and needless to say, the producers over there thought you were right on. So I'd like you to kind of start off by giving us a real brief. Tell us who Trevor is and why you're so focused on this issue. Aside from our disdain for the Zionist entity.
Sure. Well, I'm a musician in Austin, Texas. I'd been living here playing music professionally for about 12 years, and then I started to try to get out some truth about 9/11 and other issues related to Zionism, and I was able to prove that the whole entertainment industry is completely controlled, and not that I guess everyone doesn't already know that, but the way that I was attacked and hit pieces were written about me and stuff for saying these things, and so I was trying to prove to people that all people that work in entertainment in any way work under like this kind of a gag order sort of a thing, but yeah, so I just dug in my heels with this topic, and I refused to back down, and I'm still out there trying to get the truth out.
Whoops, I'm sorry, I was on mute there for a second. I was still trying to deal with those phone numbers. All right, well, thank you for that. All right, you guys are both pretty young. I'm an old man, but you guys look like you're both in your 20s or so. So I'm assuming you haven't really been. Am I right in that assumption? First of all.
Sure, I'm 27 years old.
Trevor,
I'm actually 38.
You look like you're 28, man, or less. Anyway, okay. Listen. First of all, I apologize. I'm normally not this flustered. I guess it's been a weird day for me. My cat ran away, and he came home just a little while ago, so I'm thankful for that. Otherwise, I'd be totally distracted if he was out there and I was trying to do a show while the cat was out running around. Terry's going to try to get our other guest on the line here. Hopefully that's going to work out. Trevor, tell us a little bit about the interview that you did here recently for Press TV, if you don't mind.
Yeah, not at all. They just asked me to comment on John Kerry's comments to Benjamin Netanyahu telling him not to strike Iran, and so I just sat down and wrote out a little report based on what I already know, and I just highlighted the fact that, that Israel's not capable of attacking Iran in a serious way, that its military is actually pretty weak, and the last time it attacked somebody was in 2006. Last time they had a
We kind of lost you there a little bit.
full-on invasion, cross-border invasion of Lebanon, which was ended in just 33 days by Hezbollah.
Sorry
so
about
just
that,
based
Trevor.
on that
I
fact
didn't hear
alone,
any of
I
that.
postulate that they're much too weak to take on the Islamic Republic of Iran
Terry, are you
unilaterally.
hearing this?
Yes, I am hearing it.
Okay,
I'm
all right. No, I'm
picking
sorry.
up just
Then
fine.
you were modulating. I didn't hear much of that, so I apologize for interrupting. Perhaps you could say that again for my benefit.
Oh yeah, no problem. Well, I was just saying that Israel is way too weak militarily to even dream about attacking Iran, and that it's all, they're at this point, what I think they're doing, in my opinion, is they're trying to make Netanyahu look even, I don't know, more unreasonable than he is, because I think Netanyahu knows that Israel is not going to attack Iran. So I think that there's some elements in the J Street kind of faction of the Zionist power that want to replace Netanyahu, because he's standing on the global stage now as an abject failure with the Zionist project and his overt style of warmongering, how he likes to blow things up. And that's not, I think that in this information age that they need to focus more on covert means of, focus on regime change, and because they're not going to be able to get away with the kinds of things that they've been doing for the last 3/4 of a century in Palestine.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of a distraction. All right. Well, I'm going to go straight to the treaty. I'm going to talk about the treaty. I actually did read it, and I posted it on the on Facebook, of course, for anybody. I believe it's about 147 pages. It's not really that hard to read. Several of the pages are nothing more than a list of all the various companies, aircraft numbers, and vessels names and owners that were being affected by the embargo and the inability to trade. But if you actually sit down and read the agreement, basically what they've done is they are allowing the International Atomic Regulatory Agency to have access to every one of their facilities. And what they're doing is they basically are, certainly it helps to know a little bit about the nuclear technology when you're reading this. But a lot of what it is about is having to deal with centrifuges, types of centrifuges, quality of centrifuges, the number of centrifuges, what these centrifuges are going to be allowed to produce, what they are not allowed to produce, where the waste goes, what happens if they break, how can they be replaced, this kind of thing. And we have to understand that in a modern society, there are many, many uses for nuclear isotopes other than enriching nuclear weapons. Obviously, they use nuclear isotopes in the medical industry for various treatments as well as diagnosis. They also use them for analysis of materials, for non-destructive testing of materials, this kind of thing. So there's lots of reasons for any modern society to need to have the capability of developing these things. Certainly, it's only logical that we have to be fair about this. Now, to be honest, if it was up to me, nobody would have any of these weapons, and there would be no nuclear energy, and there would be no nuclear power plants anywhere. We certainly would be better off if Fukushima was never built, and I suspect that if Chernobyl was never built, or any of these other nuclear power plants, we'd be a hell of a lot better place in this world today. So I don't want anybody to think that I am pro Iran having nuclear energy or anything like that, because I would, if it was up to me, nobody would have it. But that being said, I think that it's only fair that we treat them with the same sort of respect that we expect, that all nations expect to be treated with. Obviously, we could spend a lot of time talking about the fact that the Israelis, of course, are something like the third largest nuclear power in the world right now, believe it or not, and that most of this was of course gained illegally or surreptitiously on the black market or through behind closed-door deals with either the United States or South Africa or whatever. Clearly, Israel is not a signer to any sort of nuclear conditions, and all of these conditions for inspection and compliance that we are imposing on Iran, nobody is expecting to have being imposed on Israel. So the hypocrisy is incredible here. But yeah. Caleb, that sounds like a good opportunity for you. Go ahead and let me know what you would you like to add.
Well, I wanted to jump in here. It's important to point out that all Iranian nuclear energy sites are already subject to inspection as it stands at the current moment. Because Iran has signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, all of their nuclear energy sites are being completely monitored at all times by the International Atomic Energy Agency. What the big part of this deal, though, is that Iran, not only do they allow the inspections to continue or the monitoring of their sites to continue, but they give up 2/3 of their peaceful nuclear energy program. I mean, as much as it's the fact that that the U.S. may end these sanctions on Iran, as much as that's a victory, it's important to point out that Iran has made a lot of huge concessions at the negotiating table. And that the entire premise of the argument around it is false. Iran is not trying to develop a nuclear weapon. They have never been trying to develop a nuclear weapon. It goes against the religious principles of the country. For the last 36 years, they have been absolutely clear they do not want a nuclear weapon. All they're doing is getting nuclear energy, which they have the right to do as signatories of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And the idea that they're secretly trying to develop a bomb, this is purely a media myth. If you look at it, they have complied with the treaty to the letter. I mean, they have completely followed it. We hear reports in the U.S. press. They'll say things like, well, they had secret underground sites. Well, these sites, they weren't doing anything at these sites. They were only required to report them when they became active, and they weren't active. They hadn't done anything yet. So they were not reporting them until the point in which they had become active. They were not violating the rules. And as soon as they became active for their peaceful nuclear energy program, they were reported in compliance with the treaty. They're completely following the treaty. And the premise of these negotiations, why should one have to negotiate for something that you have the right to do? Here in the U.S., should you have to negotiate with somebody about your free speech or your right to bear arms or anything like that? Should that be up for negotiation? No. The entire premise that they basically been subject to an economic stranglehold, by the West, by the European Union and the United States, and it's really horrendous. And they're basically negotiating about how they can practice their rights. One of the good things about this treaty is it seems to be the first time that the U.S. has actually put in writing and recognized that Iran has the right to peaceful nuclear energy. And I think that's one thing that really upsets the Israelis. They don't want to recognize that Iran has the right to peaceful nuclear energy, just like any other country in the world does. They have the right to choose what kind of electricity they want in their country.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for that. It should be noted, there's about 3 or 4 different sites that are being inspected or involved in this thing. Obviously, the Israelis, we have no idea what they have. We know they have Dimona, but who knows what they've got underground? Like these guys. There's a lot of ego and saving face going on right here, and I have to suggest that this is going on both sides of the agreement. Obviously. In Iran, we're starting to hear some things, and of course these could be misconstrued or improperly translated, but we're starting to hear noises from various ayatollahs and what have you that there is that they feel that that the U.S. has surrendered and they've won and what have you. I don't really see this as true. If anything, we have released assets that we have essentially stolen from them. I think we had something like $7 billion in assets that we had to release recently. Some people have actually improperly come out and said that was money that we actually gave them. all of the infrastructure that they've been suffering there, not just in the medical but in the transportation sector. Their airline industry, of course, is severely impacted by their inability to get spare parts, although I think the United States has been working very closely to try to help them with that under the table. But the point I'm trying to make, though, is we hear a lot of bluster and rhetoric coming out of the United States now. Obviously, we expect that because there are major factions trying to defeat the deal. But at the same time, we hear similar noises coming out of Iran that people are suggesting shows a lack of good faith or bad intentions on their part. I would suggest that, first of all, there is a possibility that the information is being mistranslated, misconstrued. But at the same time, I would suggest that these people in power need to go to their citizens and can present this treaty in a way that allows them to save face and maintain some sort of dignity without it looking like they were forced into doing this in order to continue with a normal life. I don't know. You guys agree with me? I mean, I'm sure you've noticed some of the rhetoric that's coming out of Iran right now. Do you think that that's legitimate, or do you think that this is just a PR campaign for some of their leaders to try to save face? Trevor, what do you think?
Well, I think that the whole reason that they're allowing this nuclear deal with Iran is because now, with support from Russia, that it makes Iran impossible for them to fulfill their Zionist dreams of bombing it to smithereens, and so they're looking for a more of a soft kill on Iran, and so they probably want to do what they've done to the United States and to Europe and other places where they just destroy your culture by infusing it with drugs and pornography and hedonism and materialism and Hollywoodism, and that they're hoping that in another 10 to 20 years that they could have do a regime change in Iran, and that's why I think that they're expecting something in return from Iran from this deal. And then I saw the other day that the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei said that there wasn't going to be any change at all in policy towards the United States. So I think that he's shattered their Zionist dreams in two different ways, by preventing a military invasion and also by shutting out Western influence.
Okay, let me see if I understand you. Do you suspect, though, that their supreme leader, do you think that he's playing to the population and trying to pass this off as a diplomatic victory for Iran, or a lopsided victory? Do you think that's fair, and do you think that is accurate, and do you think that that's just rhetoric?
I trust him quite a bit. I believe that he's a sincere Muslim and that he doesn't want to, they're not allowed to deceive people and play games and stuff. So I think that he's just a straight shooter, and that the deal is, better than no deal. They had to work for many years to get this, and I think that they put everything that they do through a complex political calculus and know what all of the possible outcomes could be, and that he's very sophisticated, and that he's doing his job in keeping the axis of resistance growing and gaining momentum.
What do you think, Caleb? Yeah, go for it.
I mean, I think that there are two competing strategies within the circles of power in the Pentagon and in the Washington D.C. You have one circle of power which is directly linked. I've been calling it the triangle of evil. This is the Israel lobby, the weapons manufacturing corporations, and the oil companies. And their strategy has always been, if there's a government around the world that wants independence, that wants to kind of break out of this international financial system that's been set up, that it's surround it, isolate it, and subject it to military attack. But there's another crowd which has more influence in the CIA and stuff, and we're talking about like the Brzezinski kind of folks, And their strategy is more, to do it carefully. And their idea is kind of, well, we'll establish relations, do trade with them, and while at the same time sending in forces to kind of subvert them underground. It's kind of a soft power, and they want to kind of improve the U.S.'s image. And it's a strategy. It's a strategy basically about how to defeat any regime that's independent-minded. And I really think that the assassination of Kennedy, if you look back at it, was because Kennedy, I'm not saying, Kennedy was probably aligning closer with that section of the circles of power, the CIA forces that have more of a kind of a liberal perspective. They think, let's gradually infiltrate, let's fund forces. And Obama seems to be working with that crowd. And that's why, the other force, the Triangle of Evil, seems to be so dead set against the deal. But, the strategies ultimately serve the same aim. I mean, the U.S., the circles of power in the U.S., the Wall Street bankers, they have not given up trying to overturn the Iranian Revolution. It's just a question of strategy. And I think this section of the ruling elite that wants to do it in kind of a more soft power CIA way, I think that at this point they seem to be winning out. And that's the issue there. But one thing I wanted to touch on real quick was, when we talk about sanctions, I think a lot of people in the U.S. don't really know what that is. When I was in Iran, I went to, there's a place where I went to somebody, who, was very kind, brought me some tea, and I talked to the person, and I asked them, what they were doing, and they said, well, they didn't want to work there. They said they wanted to be an airline pilot, and they had actually tested in the university, gotten their license, they were ready to be an airline pilot, but they couldn't be an airline pilot because, Iran can't buy airplane parts. Airplane parts are available on the international market, and to buy airplane parts, you can't be subject to these sanctions. So because of these sanctions, Iran can't buy airplane parts. So this guy who wants to be an airline pilot, and a lot of Iranians who want to fly on airplanes can't do it. And I've heard that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there are people who die because they can't get the medicine they need because Iran can't buy it on the international markets. I mean, these sanctions are really criminal. I mean, sanctions is kind of a touchy word. It sounds, confusing. People don't know what it is. It doesn't sound so vicious. Really what these sanctions are, this is economic warfare. Essentially, in 1979, the Iranians, they kicked out a dictator who was supported by the U.S. and Israel, and they began developing independently. They have their own economy. They've kind of broken out of the international financial system where these big bankers run things. And because of that, they've been subject to economic warfare, for the last 36 years. And that's what's going on, and this economic warfare should end. And if anything is done to end the economic sanctions against Iran, that's a step forward, absolutely. I don't think it means that the goals of the leaders of the U.S. have really changed. I think it's just a change in strategy, moreover.
Got to unmute that microphone. All right, thank you, Caleb. I just, something I want to say here real quick, unrelated. There's a lot of listeners out there that are trying to, a lot of people trying to contact me to try to listen, and they want to know if there's a number that they can call in instead of going to the station. I got to tell you, if you're using McAfee for your antivirus software, get rid of it. Go get Norton or something else, because McAfee is going to tell you that www.freedomslips.com is unsafe. Hello, that is the NSA trying to keep you from listening to the station. Do not believe it. All right, sorry about that, guys. Again, this is, let me just do a couple of quickie station things. This is Revolution Radio, www.freedomslips.com. We are the world's largest listener homepage. There is a donate button on the left side of the page. You go there and it'll show you how you can use your PayPal, your credit card, or whatever to send in donations, which we desperately need to keep the network running smoothly. It takes at least a couple $1,000 a month just to keep this thing going. All right, had to do that, guys. Sorry about that. I actually had to just turn off Facebook because so many people were trying to contact me and go, oh, how can I listen to your show? My God, jeez. It doesn't do me any good to tell people what the call-in number is for listening if you're not listening right now. But in the second half of the show, we always open up to callers, although because of the nature of this show and the fact that it is somewhat of a roundtable, I don't want to call it a roundtable per se, but a panel, if you will. If you would like to join us, if you have something pertinent to share regarding this particular subject, the call-in number is 347-688 2902. And I hope you've written that down, but one more time, it's 347-688-2902, or you can join us on Skype using either Freedom Screen or Freedom of Joyce. Okay, sorry about that, guys. All right, real quick, I want to answer a question from somebody in chat. They were talking about cold fusion. Okay, cold fusion is not mentioned anywhere in this treaty. It actually has nothing to do with this treaty. The treaty is strictly having to do with uranium, heavy water, light water, isotope isolation production facilities, mainly big underground warehouses full of centrifuges. And basically, a centrifuge is a device that is used to separate the heavy isotopes from heavy water, very similar to what they were doing, the Germans were doing in Peenemünde back during World War II. Okay, I'm breaking up badly. Okay, Trevor, you're not hearing me really good? Because I wasn't hearing you. Terry, are we getting good audio? What's going on here?
I am getting that we are, you were breaking up there quite a bit in the announcements. I'm also getting some stuff that's choppy in the chat. So there was a moment where you got weak and we almost got disconnected from you for a second. So it looks like we are having some issues tonight.
Yeah, big surprise.
Yeah.
Hey guys, they don't like you. Or no, I guess they don't like me. I bet they don't like you either. Trevor, I know they don't like you.
Yeah.
Oh no.
They've got all 4 of my Facebook pages blocked. Well, one of them got unblocked today, but I keep starting another one and they just keep blocking them all.
Okay, well, never mention that you have more than one Facebook page, because that will definitely get you bumped off of Facebook. But
no, I'll tell you one example, because I work with Press TV and I do stuff with RT, and I'll tell you a bunch of people who worked with Press TV, we letter, a lot of us who banked at Chase Bank, we all got a letter on the same day from Chase Bank informing us we're no longer welcome to bank at Chase Bank. It was kind of shocking. We all got it on the same day. I had my bank account shut down.
The Nazis don't want your business.
I've been at Chase Bank for 5 or 6 years.
Sorry, Trevor. I know you.
I guess not. Yeah, Jason.
Trevor, I know you. Okay, I'm sorry, you guys. Caleb, you were breaking up. I was giving Trevor a hard time because Chase is a really hardcore Nazi establishment. They've even got a swastika in their logo.
Yeah,
Trevor, go ahead.
Those Nazis, they run the banking system, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I guess they have a
Templars.
policy. That if you do anti-imperialist work, if you're exposing the crimes of the Israel lobby and other powerful forces in the U.S., you're not allowed to bank with them. I mean, that's how crazy they are.
Well, guys, hang on just a second here. You brought something up here that gives me this wonderful opportunity. But first of all, I got to mention, I don't have a bank account.
I don't either. Me either, Stephen. High five, brother.
Yeah, I don't have a bank account. I don't have a credit card. I don't have a bank account. I got nothing of that. Which brings me to the real quick plug. And being that I live in poverty, and when you do this work, obviously you get economically hit. And I've been they can't take anything more away from me. I don't have anything left to take over. But if you do want to help me out economically, and I try not to do this too often, but I have a PayPal, and it's my name, Stephen Kelley, StevenKelley 714 at gmail.com. That's Stephen Kelley 714 at gmail.com. And donations are very, very much appreciated. And don't think I make a lot of money, because I don't. I got a book. I don't sell a lot of books. If I'm lucky, I might sell $100 worth of books in a month, but that only happens every 3 months. So, if somebody sends me $20-25 in PayPal, it is very much appreciated. And trust me, you will probably be the only one sending me money for a whole week. So, all right, guys, thanks for letting me get away with that. But yeah, we're under attack. Obviously, we're under attack. This is, nobody is going to be having shows that are going to be promoting this deal. Certainly, I know we're going to be labeled all sorts of crazy things for doing this. I'll tell you something, though, about this deal. I saw a picture in Facebook. It was a meme somebody put out. It was a picture of the comedian Jackie Mason, who we all know was, obviously extreme Zionist, but he was saying that your average New York deli is under stricter inspection standards than the facilities in Iran, the nuclear facilities in Iran that are going to be inspected by the Atomic Energy Commission. But the reality is that I don't think any New York delis have to worry about being bombed if they fail inspection. So I think that's pretty damn ridiculous thing to say. And the very fact that they have these ultra secret state agencies operating in these facilities that are going to now have these foreigners basically camped out there full time, how could you possibly say they're not under massive amounts of surveillance? Now, we also know that a Stuxnet, hope I said that properly, virus was implanted into the Iranian nuclear research facilities through a spy or a double agent who was actually working inside, who managed to smuggle in this virus or Trojan or whatever you want to call it via either a SIM card or a memory stick. But either way, it seems to me that Iran is really putting themselves at a high risk by allowing these foreigners into these facilities, because obviously there's probably going to be all sorts of double agents and Zionist agents among these inspectors who would certainly have the ability to infect any sort of computers or anything they got close to. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I'll say one thing, which is that one of the most controversial and most dangerous aspects of this treaty is the snapback mechanism, which basically, for any reason, the United States can declare the sanctions reinstated, and that's very, very controversial. And that the other thing about inspectors, weapons inspectors, it sounds good, right? They're supposed to show up, make sure that there's no weapons activity going on, whatever, and then leave. But we saw in Iraq that that's not what happens. They show up, and then they demand to look at more and more sensitive places. And then when you finally tell them no, it's a big international incident, because then, oh, what are you hiding? You're not letting the inspectors in, And inspectors are very good at creating international incidents to justify further attacks. The weapons inspection team that was in Iraq was proven to have been infiltrated by the CIA. I mean, it was proven to have been, intentionally causing a problem, and so it's one thing to be wary of. I think one of the more controversial, one of the controversies was that Iran was not going to allow inspection of any military sites, which a country that's been under attack ever since its revolution shouldn't do. I mean, why? Would we allow Iran to come and inspect all the U.S. military sites? I mean, that's a ridiculous demand to be made, And I think that they did win out, and that's not in the treaty. But that was at one point the U.S. was demanding to inspect Iran's military sites. I mean, that's just craziness. No country would do that, let alone a country that's been under attack. And, it's not just that they have been able to slip viruses in. I mean, one of the big things that happened is that the Israelis, and Obama leaked it to the press, the Israelis, in collaboration with a group called Mujahideen Khalq, which is a terrorist group, used to be on the foreign terrorist list until recently. Hillary Clinton and others maneuvered to take them off the list. This is a so-called Islamic Marxist terrorist organization that assassinated a whole bunch of the nuclear scientists, people who were just working on the nuclear power plants in Iran, just going about their business, living their lives. One guy was a university professor on his way to work and just blown away, shot, by the Israelis in collaboration with this Islamic Marxist terrorist group called Mujahideen Khalq. So, I mean, the level of extreme violence that's been carried out against Iran, I mean, it's people don't take into account that, the U.S. supported Saddam Hussein when he invaded Iran, and over 1 million Iranians died as a result of the Iraqi invasion that was supported by the U.S. And Iraq used chemical and biological weapons against Iran, and the U.S. supported them in doing it and actually gave them satellite support. I mean, very extreme crimes have been committed against the Iranian people. For what reason? They want independence. They want to control their own country. They don't want the Wall Street bankers to control their country. They want to, have an economy that serves them, not international finance. And for that, they've been so viciously attacked. It's really, it kind of shows what a victory this deal is, because this deal would ultimately result in the U.S. recognizing that Iran has the right to have their Islamic Republic and have the kind of government they choose, and that in itself is a victory.
Yeah, I think time is on the side of the oppressed, and in the case with Israel's lies about Iran, the longer that they're sitting out on the table and the more time that people have to inspect these lies, the more that they realize how truly opposite the situation is from the way that it's presented. We're told that over and over they repeat this mistranslated line that Iran wants to wipe Israel off the map, but it's actually Israel that wants to wipe Iran off the map, and on a daily basis they can be seen agitating for this, and there's a famous, well, it's famous to me, a clip of Sheldon Adelson inside of a synagogue in Israel saying that they want to drop nuclear bombs first outside Tehran and then closer and closer, and so I'm just banking on the hope that people will be able to recognize these psychopaths for what they are, and that people do have the ability to tell the difference between something that's true and something that's the opposite, the total opposite of that.
Well, I gotta
Yeah,
say,
well,
I'm no fan
the
of
word
Barack Obama. I
Luciferian
did not
keeps
vote
coming
for
to
him.
mind.
Yeah. I'm
What?
no fan of Obama's. I didn't vote for him. But what happened when Netanyahu came to the Congress? That was really unprecedented. When before in history have we ever seen, the president of a foreign country be invited to the capital of the country and allowed to give a speech from the Congress attacking a sitting president? And that's never happened before. I mean, it just shows in so many ways the Israelis are given a free pass to do things that no other country would ever be allowed to do, to break international law, to just flaunt the international community and really just do whatever they want. I mean, it's really, really ridiculous.
All right, I got to jump in here. Okay, you bring up the point, we mentioned Obama and what have you. Obviously, this is not a partisan issue. People are trying to turn it into a partisan issue. Certainly, it's an election year. The GOP, of course, seems to be populated by massively insane crazies. Obviously, the Democratic Party certainly has its share of massively insane crazies also. But it just seems like right now the GOP is bending over backwards trying to see who is the most insane. Obviously, John McCain, there's no question that John McCain is insane. Lindsey Graham is certainly insane. Now we've got these young idiots like Tom Cotton coming up. What is he, Republican in Arkansas, I believe it is. Fresh out of the military. I mean, my God, the guy is, he's so deeply in the pocket of AIPAC and these military things. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that this really is not a partisan issue. I am not for Obama either, but at the same time, I have to wonder, when you look at the big picture, obviously the big picture is that the United States economy is on its last breath, and as soon as the new BRICS bank, the new alternative to the International Monetary Fund gets underway, we're screwed. Our ability to control the world and have people actually use our worthless paper for buying and selling goods is almost over. So when I look at what's going on, the peace initiatives with Iran, it seems to me that the Obama administration, or at least the people behind the Obama administration, seem to feel that by neutralizing Iran as a threat, somehow they are going to fall out of the Russian sphere, the China sphere, or the BRICS sphere, and this is one less entity that we're going to have to fight. To me, it's all suicidal. What do you guys think about that? You think, I mean, ultimately, there's got to be something a lot more to here than just Iran in the Middle East. How do you feel Russia is involved in this? Trevor?
Well, I was going to say I totally agree with Caleb's his first statement about how we just have like two different strategies that are both aimed at the destruction of Iran and aimed at the destruction of anybody that resists the New World Order, and whatever happens to the United States as a result of the BRICS banking system, it's the United States pretty much deserves whatever comes its way, in my opinion, because we've been provoking Putin and acting insanely. I mean, how do you expect them to act? I mean, they've given us every opportunity to start being sane and stop trying to blow up everybody that doesn't march in lockstep with the New World Order agenda.
Caleb?
Well, I mean, I think that what we're seeing on a global scale is the fact that neoliberal economics doesn't work. The neoliberal economic system, which, I mean, neoliberalism as an economic policy kind of came into prominence toward the end of the Cold War, mid 70s, late 80s, and then after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it almost became the official economic religion of the United States and Western Europe. And it doesn't work. I mean, if you look at Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Soviet Union, I mean, the result was, I mean, extreme poverty, extreme, drug trafficking, child prostitution. I mean, just horrible, horrible things taking place. And as a result of that, in parts of the world where neoliberalism has been violently imposed, we're seeing a resistance. And in Russia, it's been the rise of Putin, who's a leader who he often acts as the champion of his people against the oligarchs. You've got in Latin America, you have the Bolivarian movement, Venezuela, Bolivia, Ecuador, and, all over the world, we're seeing kind of various governments coming together with very different backgrounds. I mean, you got, Cuba, North Korea, China, these are Marxist, communists. Russia, these are nationalists. Latin America, you have like Bolivarian socialists, they call themselves. Syria, that's kind of a nationalist Baath Arab, a system. Iran is an Islamic republic. They have many different ideologies and perspectives, but they all reject the rule of international bankers. They all reject neoliberalism, this system where international finance has complete control, and all countries are basically forced to just dissolve into this international order of chaos. And they're rejecting that system. And those countries that reject that system, even though they have different backgrounds, they're learning to cooperate and work with each other. The Chinese leaders now, they're talking about the new Silk Road. And I think that, there's a lot of hope in that basically, the trade has to take place in which countries are respected. You can't have an exploitive trade. That doesn't work. If someone points a gun at you and asks you for money, that's called robbery. That's not called trade. And I think that what we're seeing is the development of kind of an alternative global economy where people are trading with each other on the basis of mutual respect, and countries are allowed to develop independently and freely. And that's what's very exciting. And that's a real threat to, Wall Street, London, and Tel Aviv, which are the centers of neoliberalism. This economic system where basically governments just act as hired agents of corporations.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hang on, Trevor. I just want to. Well, I'm going to let you go, but the growth of the Eurasia is really a big thing, and certainly the resources involved and the land mass and just the populations involved is incredible. And if you want to talk about an economic bloc, they don't need Europe, and they certainly do not need North America to become incredibly wealthy and successful just working amongst each other. And I think this is one of the reasons why, as a global imperialist that we still are, obviously the United States and the European Union, they can't stand to be left out of this party. I know that the United States, we've actually our State Department has actually had the audacity to go out and say that Russia should have no right to the resources of Siberia, and that should be opened up to the whole world. How in the hell could they possibly think that? That's insane. Trevor, I'm going to let you talk, but I do need real quick. I want to address a question that came in from the chat here, having to do with the ancient sites and the technology. Okay, I'll address the technology issue first. Obviously, Dr. Keshi has been working on some work that's certainly very promising. I'd like to get him on the show to learn a little bit more about what he's actually doing. So again, alternative sources of energy are I think they're looking very good for that part of the world. The other thing, of course, is that Keshi's technology seems to have a very, very powerful military application, which the Russians seem to have applied successfully in their ability to shut down one of our Aegis-class destroyers here that entered the Black Sea. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. I believe the name was the Cook. But essentially they had a MiG fly over it and essentially shut down all their radar and communication, and then proceed to do several mock bombing runs on the distressed ship, which immediately went to port in Romania, and half the crew decided to quit the Navy immediately. So yeah, from a technology standpoint, there is a possibility that they may jump way ahead of us. The other thing that is you're talking about the ancient sites. Okay, culture and history is certainly a very big part of what's going on here. Obviously, the Zionists would like to do everything they can to minimize, marginalize, and erase as much of the ancient history as they can, especially when you consider that part of the world is the cradle of civilization. Look what they've done in Iraq. Look at what they're doing in Syria right now with Palmyra and places like that. Obviously, they're doing everything they can to destroy the culture and the history of these areas. Certainly, Iran, formerly Persia, has an extensive culture and a very, very rich history. And obviously, the Zionists that would like to try to somehow make their meager culture look appealing, it's very important for them to try to destroy the grandeur and the glory of these far superior civilizations and cultures. Hopefully you guys know. Okay, Trevor, back to you.
Well, I was just going to say, back to what Caleb was saying a second ago about neoliberalism not working, and I agree, but it seemed to be working pretty well for the IMF and the World Bank, but so I just didn't think I was just going to make a little comment that it's not maybe that accurate to say that it doesn't work. It doesn't work for us, of course, but they were very successful in looting all of these nations affected.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, I was going to say, Caleb, when you were talking about those terrorist organizations, the so-called Marxist Islamists, I thought, wow, is that seems a little like a contradiction. Is it possible to be a Islamic Marxist?
Yeah, well, Mujahideen Khalq, they're an organization, and I see them in New York City. I do a lot of reporting from the UN, and occasionally I'll see them in front of the United Nations. They'll be protesting, but they never say the name of their organization, which is Mujahideen Khalq. Instead, they always say, Camp Ashraf and Iranian resistance or whatever. And they're kind of chameleons. They'll show up at Republican neocon rallies where Rudy Giuliani is speaking, and they'll share the stage with some of the most extreme conservatives, and they always just present themselves as human rights activists or people who want democracy. Then they'll show up at Palestine rallies and play up the fact, we're persecuted, we're, true Muslims in Iran, and we're allegedly being persecuted. And then sometimes they'll show up at left events and talk against the Iranian government and say, what Marxists they are. But in reality, they're just a sick cult. If you look at them, in the early 90s, every member of the group was actually ordered to
hang on, Caleb. Caleb, that's our break. Okay, we'll be back in 1 hour, in about 5 minutes. I need both of you guys to please mute your microphone. We will take calls when we get back. Everybody stay with us. We're going to have a few short commercials, and we will be right back with the Stephen D. Kelly Show in about 5 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Imagine. Just imagine. Imagine a world
where every child and adult will have the opportunity to achieve their dreams.
I believe my inspiration is the answer.
My inspiration is the greatest light.
The greatest energy.
It was born when the universe was sparked into life.
It's within everything.
My inspiration transforms pain into happiness.
And failure into success.
My inspiration inspires lives.
It inspires lives.
It inspires human lives.
My inspiration is always shining like the sun.
But but it doesn't mean that it's alive.
For centuries, my inspiration was in prison.
In prison.
In prison.
It doesn't belong there.
Its home is to be known to all people.
My inspiration is in trouble.
We are fighting for its life right now.
Right this moment.
This moment.
Millions all over the world want to go beyond their limitations.
Liberate their dreams and reach success. The failure of us all to be someone
Is the biggest disease
Of all time.
Each day our brothers and sisters die. Please help us to birth this inspiration to life.
And that will stop this disease.
Help us get the word out of our inspiration.
help us.
Help us.
It's our shared belief for a better future beyond the horizon. Let's write the future.
Heroism is here.
Stand up and grasp it.
Stand up.
Stand up and grasp it.
Stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up. For the dreams of all people.
This is Nighthawk from Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now is your time to stand up and make a difference or fade away. Fade.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener studio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. This is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. I am your host, Stephen D. Kelly. Tonight we are discussing the nuclear treaty with Iran, the historic P5+1 agreement. I have a couple people with me who are frequent contributors to Press TV, as am I. I had another guy that was going to join us, but I just found out that he was sleeping and he's not going to get up. He's not going to join us. So anyway, so Trevor and Caleb, thank you for being here. I want to remind everybody again that Revolution Radio, our home, is the #1 listener-supported radio network in the world. and that means that we do require your donations to continue operating. So please, if you can, go to our site support page, which is easy enough to find. You just go to our main page at www.freedomslips.com, and it'll be on the left side of the page. There'll be a blue button that says donate. Anyway, if you can, go there and help us out. If you want to help me out directly, my PayPal is stephenkelly714@gmail.com. I'd also invite all of you to join the radio station's Facebook page, which of course you can find easy enough on Facebook by doing a search for Revolution Radio or even Freedom Slips. That'll get you there. Please join it. You guys, Trevor, Caleb, if you have not done that, I would like you guys to do that also. And if you have not joined my Facebook page, please do that. It's easy enough to find also. Just do a search. Hell, if you go to Google and you do a search with my name, Stephen D. Kelly, the first thing I think that comes up is my Facebook page. And, of course, all of the previous shows and archives and lectures and what have you are all there also. So please take advantage of that if you would. Let's see what else. Yeah, that's mainly it. Anyway, but I do want to thank all of you that are listening for joining us. If you're a first-time listener, thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and I hope that you will continue to listen to the other programs that we have on this network. It is there's a lot of people on this network. We have a lot of different shows. Also, let's see. Now, Caleb and Trevor here, I know you guys, now neither you guys don't have any, usually like the other guy was supposed to have on here, he had a radio show. I don't think any of you are doing anything like that, are you?
I guest on a lot of shows, but I don't have my own yet, and I'm a contributing editor to The Ugly Truth, which is Mark Glenn's blog, and do some other things, but at the moment I don't have my own show. All
right, well, do you want to point anybody in the direction of that blog then? Would you say it was Mark Glenn?
Yeah, it's just theuglytruth.wordpress.com is kind of, I consider that my home base, and there's a bunch of us that are, seeing the same picture and that are kind of approaching things in the same way, and we naturally gravitate towards one another, and so that's my go-to place. My favorite news site is The Ugly Truth.
You have anything like that going on, Caleb, that you do, or what?
Well, I do news packages for Press TV from the UN and from New York City, and I write articles for Russia Today, RT.com, and for a magazine called New Eastern Outlook. That's journal-neo.org. But if you want to keep up with what I'm doing, you can generally just go to my website. It's just my first name and last name .info, calebmaupin.info, CALEBMAUPIN.info. That's my website. All my articles, interviews, talks, they all go up there. And I work with a lot of different folks. There seems to be a lot of people who are waking up and realizing that the order that the international bankers have set up, it just isn't working, and that there is a way out. And I think we're in a changing period. I think that the old world is dying, but the new world isn't here yet, but it's on its way, and we're at kind of a difficult transition.
All right, well, thank you for that. Okay, as I said, this is the second hour of the show is open up to callers, so certainly, I know there's a lot of people listening, and don't be afraid to call in if you've got something that you want to say. If you want to call us up and tell us that we're all full of it, I welcome you to do that. You may not stay on the air very long, but I won't say anything nasty, so you're welcome to call us in. If you represent AIPAC or something and you want to tell us that Iran is trying to destroy the world and Israel is the bastion of freedom in the world, come on, guys. If you want to try to tell us that, please go ahead.
That would make it a comedy show.
Yeah, well, now. Anyway, but again, the call-in number, if you have not written this down, and please do if you have, because this number doesn't change, but Studio A, this is the call-in number for Studio A. It is area code 347-688-2902. And I know there's probably some people in chat that would like to, that may have some questions. You guys are always welcome to join us. So anyone wants to call in and give us your opinion about this one way or the other, we would appreciate it. Obviously, most of what people have regarding this are just opinions. I mean, Caleb, not too many people that I know have actually been to Iran, so certainly you have an advantage there. I don't know how many people have actually read the treaty. I know I have 147 pages or whatever the heck it is. It's not that big a deal. So, if you have not read the treaty, it's really difficult to go out and make any kind of claims about what is or what isn't in there. But I guess the main thing that we're trying to do tonight is to counter the ridiculous propaganda that this is somehow this incredibly horrible deal, and that because of Obama, Iran is suddenly going to be nuking everybody. This is preposterous, and it's beyond retarded. And I'm sorry for using that word, but sometimes that's just the most appropriate. So, okay, Caleb, Trevor, where do you guys want to go with this? Obviously we know that my God, okay, let me just say this. Let's go back in time a little bit during the Iranian Revolution. Obviously we could say quite a bit about the events that led up to that, with the CIA coup and the removal of the elected leaders and replacing them with the Shah and what have you. It's even been suggested that Khomeini was when he was living in Britain prior to when he was in exile, that he had no beard, wore short hair, and he looked like a Westerner. It's kind of, I'm not trying to piss off the people in Iran, but it seems so reminiscent of, say, like the leader of ISIS, who we suspect is a Mossad agent. We've seen pictures of him with no beard and what have you. Go ahead, Caleb.
I can't agree with that at all. I mean, Khomeini, he was forced into exile, and the reason that he led the Islamic Revolution, that he ultimately won out. The reason for that was that he represented what most Iranians during that period felt. I mean, they wanted a society that was in line with religious principles, in which they felt it shouldn't be capitalist, but that it also shouldn't be a communist or a Marxist-Leninist society. They wanted a society based on religious principles, where morality came first and money came second. That was what most people in Iran at that time wanted, and that really Khomeini was the only force in Iranian society that had been consistently opposed to domination by Wall Street in the United States. The communists in Iran, they had collaborated during the Second World War. They had worked with the British and had kind of told Iranians to stop fighting against the British Empire, because it was the Soviet Union's policy of all against Hitler. The organization that Khomeini represented and the sentiments he represented were probably the most widespread throughout the country. I mean, he was really the only leader capable of really taking power in the overthrow of the Shah. No other political force in the country had that ability. If Mossad and the U.S. were so happy about him, why did they then back Saddam Hussein and give him chemical weapons to attack them and kill over 1 million of them? Why has there been basically U.S. war against Iran since the moment of the Iranian Revolution? I really don't think a fair comparison can be made at all. I think that Khomeini really represented what most Iranians were fighting for, which was independence.
Well, okay, hang on a second here, Caleb. Yeah. I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a moment, even as much as I don't like doing that, but sure. I'm going to do it here. Two things I want to say. One is when you made the comment just now that why would they do that if they're just going to turn around and start killing people? Well, you got to remember who we're talking about here. We're talking about satanic entities that live to look for new ways to kill people. So certainly, it's almost like it's like when we set up Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Certainly, obviously, he served his purpose with helping to murder 1 million Iranians, but at the same time, we knew that it would only be so long before he served his usefulness, and we would turn around and start murdering millions of Iraqis. But let me just throw this out there, and this isn't really related, but obviously because of my age, I remember when the revolution took place, that after Khomeini came into power and the Shah went into exile, took off and disappeared. All of his commanders, his generals, his military personnel, his secret police and what have you, were all subject to execution. And I have to tell you, in the days after the revolution, I remember this very vividly because as a young person, I was kind of shocked to see this every night on TV. But it seemed like every night on TV, they would have a picture where basically it would be a shot from within the morgue over there in Tehran, and they would have the body of all the most recently executed men, high-ranking individuals working for the Shah, and you'd see them laying there on the slab with bullet holes. And this was every night. Every night we'd get to see pictures of the former agents of the Shah that had just been executed that day. And I got to tell you, it was pretty horrendous. Now, clearly, an eye for an eye and all that. I'm not going to suggest that anybody should have mercy on these people. Certainly, that's their judgment. But at the same time, doesn't it seem just a little bit less than loving that they went through that blood orgy immediately after the revolution?
I have all trust in Ayatollah Khamenei and Khomeini too when he was alive, and I think that I just want to assert that I think it's kind of preposterous. This is my opinion, of course, that the idea that the Ayatollah is one of theirs. I think that if he was one of theirs, they wouldn't have been agitating against him for the last several decades, and it may be a lively thesis, but something that I don't believe in. And from my dealings with Iranians and people at Press TV who are connected to the Ayatollah's office, I sense nothing but sincere, ethical, moral, good people.
Well, I'm inclined. Hang on, Caleb. I'm inclined to understand those feelings because certainly I've seen interviews with people who have gone there and have actually talked to these religious leaders who've come off and said that they seem to come off as just incredibly pious, moral individuals. Very impressive people to be around. But at the same time, though, if we look at ISIS today, we know that ISIS was certainly created by the CIA, and if we look at this supreme leader of them, who we suspect was nothing more than a Mossad agent, don't you think that the agents of darkness have a long history of doing this?
Yeah. Well, I guess what I would say is look at the impact. Okay, the role that Iran is playing in the Middle East right now is a stabilizing role. If you look at Syria, the Syrian government, which is aligned with Iran, you have Christians, Alawites, and Sunnis all living in peace. You look at Iran itself. I went to church in Iran. I'm a Christian. I went to church in Iran, downtown Tehran, church, Christians openly, happily, praising God, no problem, right?
Nobody's spitting on you, huh?
No, nothing like that at all. In fact, there were government leaders who actually came, to the church to shake hands. It was like it was kind of the anniversary of the church being founded, and there were all kinds of local members of parliament coming to shake hands and confirm that that Christianity and Islam can peacefully coexist. There are even synagogues in Iran that open, and Judaism is allowed to practice as a religion, even as long as they oppose Israel. You're not allowed to support Israel and be a Zionist, but if you want to practice the Jewish religion, you're free to do that. But if you look at what ISIS is doing, ISIS is killing people. ISIS is a source of instability. And I think instability is what the forces of darkness want at this point. Whereas Iran is playing a role of stability. Their plan for Afghanistan right now, just a couple of weeks ago at the UN, Iran presented its plan for Afghanistan. What's their plan? Is it drone strikes? Is it troops? No, their plan to stabilize Afghanistan is trade and transport. They're actually building a railroad into Afghanistan right now with the hope that bringing trade and business into Afghanistan can stabilize the economy and kind of stop the flow of drugs and stop the underground economy of terrorism and drugs that is propped up. Throughout the region, Iran is playing a stabilizing role, whereas ISIS is creating sectarian warfare. I mean, they want to kill and deport all the Christians. They want to kill Shias. They want to they play a role of creating sectarian violence. It's having the opposite impact. I guess that would be the difference. That would be the argument that I would make. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and before you say something, Trevor, I want to just elaborate on what you said. Yes, Iran does have a very sizable Hebrew population, and of course the Zionist entity has been doing everything they could to try to convince these people to emigrate to Israel, and they've basically said, no, we're happy here. So I think as long as you have a significant population of Jewish people living in Iran, it kind of makes the whole position held by the Israelis kind of pathetically moot. Now, the other thing, I was going to say something else, but Trevor, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to throw in that it's a pretty false comparison to compare the Iranian Shiite regime to the Israeli CIA-backed ISIS group, which are Wahhabic radicals. And if you study Wahhabism, it's created by and put into power by the Rothschilds and British Empire in Saudi Arabia. So it's actually a very warlike and sort of Talmudized version of Islam. So they're working off of different ideologies, and one group is totally linked to CIA, Western intelligence, and the other one is I very much believe in the axis of resistance, and I'm not one of these people that thinks that the whole world is pro wrestling and that it's all staged. There's definitely a very real anti-Zionist revolution going on, and which was founded by Iran in 1979.
Well, I do agree that the momentum to thwart the Greater Israel and the ultimate genocide that the Zionists are trying to perpetrate on the world seems to be faltering. But at the same time, we're still in a really, really dangerous situation. I want to kind of go in a different direction here real quick. I don't know. I want to get your opinion. I'll start with you, Caleb, about the situation in Yemen right now with the attack on the Saudis by the Saudis and with the support that they're getting from the Iranians. What do you make of that whole situation?
Well, before I go there, can I respond to another thing you said earlier about the executions? Can I just briefly touch on that? Do you mind?
Quickly, go.
Okay. Well, we don't know. We're people from the U.S. and things are bad here, but they're nothing. I mean, there's not been a war here. We don't understand what people in that part of the world have had to go through. And I mean, the Shah. Every Iranian has a relative who is kidnapped and tortured to death by the Shah. And I mean, there's a lot of extreme horrible things that have happened, and I don't think we can really pass judgment on what would happen after a revolution, especially when that revolution is facing attack and subversion, and people do things to defend their revolution, and I don't want to necessarily say that that's what I would have done if I were in that situation, but I don't know, and I think that we really can't pass judgment on that as people living in the West. Now on to Yemen. It's interesting.
Wait. Hang on, Caleb. I got to give you a quick retort. I'm just trying to remember, as far as that execution thing, you talk about revolution. I'm trying to think back. Our own American Revolution, did we run around executing all the Tories afterwards? I don't think so.
No, there was mass executions and mass deportations of Tories, actually.
You're going to have to look into that now. That's definitely something.
You're supposed to execute your traitors. That's just basic, that's just necessary.
Well, I guess that's when Wesley Clark says he wants to stick all of us in FEMA camps. I guess that's what they're right. That would be you and me, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were after the American Revolution, there were a lot of Tories who were either forcibly deported or killed, and over the course of the Revolution, there was a lot of action that was taken, and I'm not opposed to it. I think it was what the American Revolution had to do in order to protect itself. Unfortunately, I mean, it's revolution. Mao, or the Chinese Revolution, he said it's not a dinner party, and these are kill or be killed situations that people are in. This isn't a case of people just dreaming up the ideal world and imposing it. I mean, this is these are real social forces clashing with one another, and it can be very, very ugly. I
have my own ideas about how punishment should work, but let's move on. Let's go to the Yemen issue. You were just getting ready to talk about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I was on a ship, the Iran Shahid, which was chartered by the the Red Crescent Society of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we tried to go to Yemen, and we tried to deliver humanitarian aid. There was 58,000 tons of humanitarian aid we were trying to deliver to Yemen. This was water, flour, and all of that, and we couldn't get to Yemen because they bombed the port on the day we were supposed to arrive. They bombed it 8 times. The Saudis bombed the port in Yemen eight times to prevent humanitarian aid from being delivered. That situation there is just, it's just horrific. It just exposes all the hypocrisy of Israel and the United States in that region. They say they want democracy. They're all for democracy. Well, the people of Yemen, they overthrew a dictator. Mansour Hadi, this is a dictator, an agent of the Saudis, the only candidate on the ballot. He's a dictator. The people of Yemen have risen up against him, and they want to write a democratic constitution. They have, people's assemblies that are forming where the people are getting involved in the process. And the Saudis are responding by bombing Yemen and killing civilians and just bombing the place and attacking the place however they can in response to this massive uprising of democracy. And the people, the people that run the U.S. and the Israelis are supporting the Saudi monarchy and suppressing a democratic uprising. Can you see the hypocrisy there anymore? It's just blatant. The Saudis, they behead people all the time. There's no democracy in Saudi Arabia of any kind. The whole country is the property of the king. People get the death penalty for insulting the king. People get, people get the death penalty for crimes like sorcery, crimes like, it's just, it's an absolute dictatorship in Saudi Arabia. But the U.S. would support them against the people of Yemen who were trying to write a democratic constitution. And saying that the Yemeni people are Iranian agents is really, really, really stupid. The Ansar Allah organization, sure, they're Shias, but they're aligned with a whole broad coalition of people in Yemen. They're Sunnis, they're secular forces who are aligned with them because they don't want a puppet Saudi dictator running their country. And the idea that the only reason Yemenis would want to control their country is because they got, secret orders from Tehran, rise up, now is the time. That's really offensive. The people of Yemen, just like the people of any other country, want to run their country. And Wall Street and the Saudis and Tel Aviv are determined not to allow that to happen. And I hope the Yemeni people will succeed. I hope they're able to break their country free and begin independently developing, like the Iranians have done, like the Syrians have done, like the Cubans have done. I'm for independence. I'm for self-determination.
Mm. All right. Well, Caleb, I appreciate that, and I think that's really. I'm very happy that we are able to have you here tonight, just because of your exposure and your having been involved in those exact events. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to have you here just because of that. I do want to say real quick though that obviously most of us here in the United States we look upon Yemen as somewhat of a backwards backwater and a bunch of savages of something kind of like Ethiopia, a dysfunctional society. I don't really believe that's true, and if there was anything to that, I think we probably play a large role in keeping them in that position. I'm sure you have more experience. Trevor, let me give you an opportunity to respond. What is you want to say?
I would just throw in on top of what Caleb said that, in my opinion, the naked aggression that the Saudis are perpetrating against Yemen is just it signals that I think the New World Order is on its way out. It's just an act of sheer desperation. It's a battle that can't be won, yet they, that's their only option. I think it's just what you're watching are the Zio Saudis and Israelis and the New World Order just flailing and floundering as we try to back it into a corner and make the truth become the new dominant paradigm. And so we have all these things that are happening on a global stage that people are able to see just using the internet, and then they can see that, why doesn't the UN really say anything, and why isn't the media covering the mainstream media covering what's happening in Yemen? And it should be just like so in your face and just obvious at this point. I really think that we're reaching a tipping point. We're reaching like a threshold where maybe when we get to 12 or 15% of the population awake to what's going on, there'll be like a big chain reaction globally. But what I see day in and day out is forces of the New World Order falling.
Mm-hmm. Well, thankfully we get to play a role in all that for the time being. Let's hope we can continue doing that. I want to kind of go in a different direction here real quick regarding the Saudis and Russia. A couple things. First of all, Putin basically threatened Saudi Arabia with nuclear destruction if they were to launch attacks on Syria. And now recently we are seeing Saudi, they're making something like $1 billion investment in the Russian economy. So obviously they seem to be taking taping the message from Putin seriously. But what do you make of that? That whole from a strategic geopolitical standpoint, Caleb? What do you think's going on there with Russia and Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think that Russia it's trying to emerge. I mean, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, I mean, the chaos that took place in Russia was just massive. I mean, it was like the corporations wouldn't pay taxes in some instances because they had bigger armies than the government. You know, the government would come and try to tax the corporations. They would say, no, we have a bigger army, and shoot back at them. I mean, it was like that level of chaos. People who were in the former Soviet Union in the 90s can just tell you how, just crazy it was. And out of that chaos emerged Putin. And Putin is, he's a former KGB guy. He's a strong man, a tough guy, and he's known for kind of sticking up for the Russian people. And he refused to privatize the oil and the natural gas in Russia. And Russia continues to export oil and natural gas, and they have a highly, there's a lot of a government-run economy there, though there's still a very strong private sector as well. I mean, it's not the old Soviet Union. It's, it's a government, but it's a nationalistic government. And right now, the U.S. oil and natural gas market is booming. Why? Because of hydraulic fracking. Right? I mean, there's all kinds of oil and natural gas from the U.S. that didn't used to be on the market is all of a sudden on the market. And so the price is dropping very rapidly. And one thing that the international bankers desperately need is they need to drive Russia off the market. And so there's a big efforts to attack Russia and attack any country that aligns with Russia. Because they want to basically drive Russia off the market and keep the price of oil and natural gas higher. I mean, it's pure. This is pure business here, and they don't want their competitor to be on the market. They want the stuff that they're selling to be worth more. I think that's what this is about. I don't think the Russian leaders really necessarily want to fight the U.S. I think they just want to kind of run their economy to serve the Russian people. But I mean, they're doing business with Saudi Arabia. I guess there's some kind of deal involving nuclear power with Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, Russia's also doing business with Syria. And Syria, has faced, it's the Saudis that are funding this campaign of just violent terrorism against the Syrian government, doing everything they can to destabilize and overthrow it with these Takfiri extremists who basically want to turn the country into a Sunni caliphate. ISIS originated among these forces, and Russia has stood beside Syria and stood beside the Syrian government, which stands for stability, which stands for religious freedom, which stands for, not having society torn up by religious extremism. I think Russia's playing a good role on the international scene, but they have intricate business relations. Putin has made some statements in support of Israel in the past. I don't agree with that at all. I think that the Israeli government is one of the most immoral entities in the world at this time. Unfortunately, Putin's made statements in support of them, and I don't agree with that. And I'll be straight up about that. I guess, does that answer your question?
Well, I think he's trying to be diplomatic, probably, but I guess, yeah, you've sort of answered my question, but I think what you're trying to say then is that by making friendly with Saudi Arabia, Russia is making it so that Saudi Arabia becomes less of an enemy or less of a competitor or a hostile competitor with respect to their petroleum products. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
I guess. I mean, that's one way of looking at it.
All right, Trevor, what do you want to say?
I agree with all of that, actually, and I just see Russia playing a very positive role on the global stage, and yes, they make business deals with people, and they Putin has to say certain things about Israel, and he can't say what he really thinks. I know that he dislikes Israel because he's aligned with the axis of resistance. He's aligned with Iran, which wants to, make Israel disappear from the pages of history. So I think that speaks louder than anything that he says. And
well, hang on. Let's rephrase that here, okay? That could be construed wrong. Let's say, how could we say that in a less volatile way?
They're acknowledging that the Israeli regime itself is not legitimate. I mean, you read the Ayatollah's tweets, and even Khomeini. I mean, Iran has never believed that the illegal regime occupying Palestine is a legitimate force. So, yeah, I mean, factor in that Israel wants to establish this greater Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates, and then they want to usher in a one world government. So I mean, we can't like pussyfoot around with Israel. This regime is cancerous and it's growing, and it needs to be contained, and it needs to go bye-bye eventually. I mean, this country doesn't.
All right, let me just jump in here for a minute, because I think this is important. I'm not saying that I disagree with you at all, but obviously
gave permission to have their land stolen.
Their creation of Israel and their attempted theft of Palestine. Oh, we lost connection? Wait a minute. Okay, hang on, everybody.
I lost
you
you for a
okay.
second.
All right, Terry, what's going on? We good? Okay, we're back. All right. Probably because we're getting a little
bit of
we're getting into some
loss.
scary territory. Okay, I just want to say this. Yes, the Rothschilds and their money should have never caused this to happen again. However, we should remember that there were Hebrew people, so I'm not saying Israelis or Jewish people, but Hebrew people of the Hebrew persuasion living in Palestine for thousands of years. And even when they were ejected, they were invited back by the Caliph or the Sultan at the time. This has happened more than once. So obviously the reigning Islamic rulers at the time have gone out of their way to make the Hebrew people welcome in that area. But now we see that they're talking about trying to tear down the temple, and they're actually planning on rebuilding the third temple. In fact, I think today is actually when they celebrate the loss of the original two temples. Is that right? There's a feast or something going on right now?
Yeah, there's something going on like that.
Right. Okay. So, go ahead, Caleb.
Well, no, I think that the entity that calls itself Israel should be replaced with a government in that region in which all the people living in there have equal rights, and that the concept of a Jewish state, I don't think that that's consistent with any standard of human rights in the world today. I think all the people living in Palestine should have equal rights and be treated equally. And I don't think that's a very radical thing to say. I'm just saying that all people who live in one particular part of the world should be equal and should be represented in the government of that part of the world. But if you say that, people say you're an extremist of some kind, and that's considered this really extreme, hateful statement. But that's what I think. I think that all the people living in Palestine should have a government that represents them. I don't think there should be an Israel. I think there should be a government for that region that represents all the people democratically and fairly.
Ultimately, the decision needs to be made by the Palestinian people, what they want to do with their country and how they liberate it. But I would like to highlight that the policy of Iran and Supreme Leader, according to a tweet that I saw from the Ayatollah, who has great tweets, it was recommending a Palestinian freedom referendum where people, Palestinian people, whether displaced or still inside, can have a democratic vote on what to do with the invading Zionists. And I know what they're going to do with them. They're going to eject them because they don't have any right to be there. And you can't go around talking about creating peace between these two groups of people. You've got one that's like a murderous, supremacist, invader group of people, and then you've got their victims. So you can't have peace between these two groups. Or another analogy would be like if someone kicked down the door to my house and took over 90% of it, and and then tried to make peace with me later, try to negotiate peace. Like what right do they have to take my house? It's preposterous. They don't have any right to do what they did in Palestine, and there should not be a racist, supremacist government that only cares about Jewish people. I mean, we can't pussyfoot around the issue. Israel defines itself as a Jewish state and has Jewish symbols all over.
All right, I gotta jump in now. Hang on, Trevor. Hang on.
I'm sorry, I promised I wasn't going to do that, didn't I?
Bear with me. Yeah, I know. All right, listen. Okay. You guys bear with me just a second here. There's something I want to say, and it's not the easiest thing to say, but the answers here, the long-term answers, are very, 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 very difficult. Obviously, there are criminals, and there have been crimes, and there are certainly lots of victims that would like to see justice and retribution. However, we are in a stage in the world where we are going to go through a massive change, and I'm not just talking about an economic, philosophical change, but a spiritual revolution as well. I do agree with you that there should not be a Jewish entity per se. Any sort of a society based on theology, I think is probably not correct. Obviously, Iran is certain. Well, obviously, Iran falls in that category, and I'm not going to judge them as much as I'm going to try to avoid judging Israel at this point. Although I do agree that Israel should have never been put together, and World War II certainly was an exercise in trying to accomplish that very thing. But what I want to suggest, and this is going to be very difficult, is that in order for the world to move forward, if we were able to make everything stop, in other words, if we were able to stop all of the crimes from happening instantaneously, the weapons were all put down and everything happened like that all at once, we would still have to adopt a method of dealing with the perpetrators of these crimes that did not involve punishment. Obviously, I look at these things in a broad way, and I look at these things and I see Satan's influence. And I believe that a society based on punishment is a satanic concept. And I think that if we are to move away from all these evil, wickedness, and satanic influenced manipulations of society into this new age, it's also going to involve having to adopt a radical approach to punishment. Now, don't get me wrong. I have no problem with seeing the Rothschild family executed, all of them. Okay. And if I had to say that anybody had to pay, I would say it's the Rothschilds. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, well, how can you leave the Queen of England out of there? How can you leave the Pope out, et cetera, et cetera? Well, okay, I'll tell you what. This is my deal. If everybody lays down their weapons, stops fighting, gives up the Rothschilds, we take them out, everyone else could be forgiven, and we will have a equitable distribution of everything and try to make things right. But as far as expelling the Jews from Palestine right now, I think that it's not going to fix the problem. I mean, obviously, that a lot of people think that that's the way it is. I would like to see them not expand any further, but I would like to see a society built on bloodshed and retribution cease to exist. So that seems like a radical concept, but I truly feel that the world is going to have to embrace this if we're going to really see the peace. In other words, as long as one half of the equation knows that they are going to be punished, they are going to resist and they are going to fight. But I think if everybody was granted blanket immunity and blanket forgiveness, with the exception of the Rothschilds, of course, I think there's a possibility that we could actually move forward and enter a new age.
Well, what I would
what do you guys think of that?
The removal from power of anyone that identifies as a member of a hate group. And if you're going to go around saying things like Gentiles are filth and the
I heard you fine on everything that you said on my end.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I have to
yeah,
check
well,
and see what's
needless
going on
to
in
say,
chat.
the show is getting attacked. Big surprise, right?
Yeah.
Like we didn't know that was going to happen. Of course, there would be people out there who would say, "Oh no, you just think you're special and you're not being attacked. You just got bad internet."
Well, one thing I want to add. I mean, this is just my own opinion. Feel free to disagree with me. But I don't think it's necessarily. I mean, I hate the Rothschilds. Don't get me wrong. They're a banking family, a banking dynasty that has done horrendous things. But I feel like they're part of a bigger system. And I often tell people that in the U.S. If you just say the Israel lobby or you just say the Zionists, you're not getting the whole picture. If the Zionists were by themselves, they would just be a group of people all by themselves. But there's bigger forces here. The Zionists, Theodore Herzl went around, advocating, went to all the wealthy people in the Western countries, all the big bankers, Jewish and non-Jewish, and went to them and said, look, give us an Israel, and it can be an outpost of your system. We can help make sure that you control this vital part of the world. I mean, there's direct quotes from him, and I feel like, Zionism is an evil force, but it's not the end-all, be-all. I feel like the problem is really imperialism. It's a system of imperialism, and Zionism is an expression of it. Zionism is a racist ideology that says that if you're not a Jew, you're not a human being. It's racism, and it's really a disgusting thing. And frankly, it wasn't until the Second World War, until the end of the Second World War, that the majority of Jews were even Zionists. Until the end of the Second World War, the majority of Jews in the world were socialists and communists who rejected Zionism. If you read some of the stuff the Bolsheviks wrote, they were very, very opposed to Zionism. Stalin also, and they even created in the former Soviet Union, there was a Jewish autonomous region that was created. So the idea that the Jews never had a national territory and they had to set up one in Palestine, that's completely false.
Well, hang on, Caleb. I got to jump in here again real quick, because we're trying to avoid, the label thing. But let me just throw this out. We have done programs on the history of the Khazars. Mm-hmm. Okay, tracing the fall of the breakup of Israel and the Kingdom of Solomon, and the subsequent capture by half the population by Assyria and the rest of them going to Babylon, and what happened and who went where. And we were able, of course, to trace the migration of the people of northern Israel that went into Assyria, into most of Europe and essentially the area around what is today Kiev, and that whole area of the Ukraine and what's going on there. So I just want to suggest that yes, there are entities out there that are masquerading as possibly as masquerading as the true Semites when they are Khazars. However, though, because the Khazars spent at least 300 years or more, possibly even 400 years in relative isolation in the Caucasus, we don't know what happened to those people. We don't know if they are truly connected to the Kingdom of Israel or if there's something else. But we do know that they practiced what we could consider satanic rituals. And again, I want to bring back that because I believe that is the true common denominator here that we're really fighting against here, is that satanic influence. And we're not here to fight against our fellow humans, flesh and blood. We're here to fight against these dark forces.
Yeah.
Now, Trevor, I can't tell if you're talking. Okay. All right, Caleb, go ahead.
One thing I got to say is that if you read, the stuff the Israelis put out, one thing they absolutely love and need is straight up anti-Semitism. It's very helpful to them. Every time there's, people walking around in funny costumes pretending they're Nazis or whatever, that helps Israel. And the Saudis, who are big allies of the Israeli government, you watch Saudi television, you watch Saudi broadcast, there's a lot of just, hate for Jews. And Israel wants the terms of the debate to be, are you for the Jews or are you against the Jews? That's the way they want the debate to be framed. They want to act as if they are a representation of Jewish people, of a whole religion with a whole variety of history, and that they are the end-all, be-all representation of it, and everyone who opposes them just hates Jews. And that's the terms they want the debate to be on. And that's very, very dangerous. There's been a lot of evidence to show that Israel, works to promote certain kinds of ideas in order to taint any criticism of them as being anti-Semitism. And it's pretty crazy. I mean, a lot of efforts go on in order to Israelis. They create their own opponents. The Saudis pretend to oppose Israel. They don't. The Saudis are the best friends of Israel, but they pretend to oppose it. And when they do, they speak in they speak in terms of Israel represents the Jews and we don't like the Jews. Well, no. I mean, I've met Neturei Karta. That's an amazing organization. These are Jewish rabbis who oppose Israel and say that Israel is a strict, clear violation of the Talmud. And or not the Talmud, but the Torah. They reject the Talmud. They're true Torah Jews. They don't accept the Talmud. They say it's a clear rejection of the Torah, and that the Jewish faith does not allow the setting up of a state. That's a clear violation of their religion. And the Jews in Iran, there are a lot of Jews in Iran, but they all are unanimous in saying that Israel is a violation of their faith. That to actually be a Jew is a violation of the Jewish religion. And I think that anytime we start talking about the Jews, are you for the Jews, are you against the Jews, we're helping the Israelis. That's what Israel wants. I mean, that's like giving them a gift, because then they can say, see, look at all these anti-Semites. We need our own country. Look how oppressed we are and persecuted. It plays into the Israeli narrative. That's kind of my 2 cents.
Okay. What they don't want people to know is that people that oppose them don't oppose them because they're Khazars or because they're Jews. It's opposition based on a rejection of the supremacist ideology. It's a rejection of their ideology, and so it never was about being against the Jews. They love to frame it.
Let's talk about the protocols. Right? Okay. Now, we know that we talk about the Masons. We talk about these secret societies. We know that the Zionist movement, or the satanic entities that are involved with the Zionist movement, they're also involved with the Masonic organizations and outright Lucifer worship. They use the people, the Jewish people, especially the Jewish people in Europe, and the subsequent death of those people to cause these problems. I got fireworks going off, so that's why the dogs are barking. I got my water bottle in hand. Anyway, so what the point I'm trying to make is that by and large, the Jewish people are just people like us. They're I don't want to try to say they're this or that, ethnically or religiously or what, but we do know that there were entities that were perhaps masquerading as Hebrews that used this religion or this culture in order to gain power and to corrupt society by and large. So I want to suggest that there's a lot of Jewish people in the world who are also victims of these Zionist Luciferians.
Well, absolutely. I mean, here in New York, one of the big groups, the Jewish Defense League, the JDL, their primary target was any Jew who criticized Israel. And they would attack. If you were an anti-Zionist Jew, you would receive death threats from them. They went around attacking anti-Zionist Jews with weapons, baseball bats, all kinds of things. And the Neturei Karta organization, these are rabbis who bravely go out and protest the UN and go around the world denouncing Israel's crimes. They've been targeted by the Israelis. And there are many Jews in the world who reject this ideology, this supremacism, this Zionist nonsense that only this small group is.
I've had the opportunity to meet Irv Rubin, the late Irv Rubin. I'll just say one thing about Irv Rubin, who was the head of the JDL. He was very pro Second Amendment, and he was when the city council here in Los Angeles was getting ready to shut down major gun shows here in LA. Irv Rubin was one of the staunch defenders that got up there and tried to remind these people that this is the exact same thing that the Nazis did, so many years ago, taking away the weapons. So I got to give him credit for that. Trevor.
Yeah, I mean, you probably aren't going to like what I have to say.
I know what's coming from you, Trevor. Just do it.
So just brace yourselves, But when I researched the Neturei Karta, what I found was that they have their own special reasons for opposing Zionism, which are not based on universal human morality, but rather based on the desire to cover their own ass, because what their belief is that the pre-Antichrist, pre-Moshiach existence of a Jewish state gives the world too much of a window into what actually Judaism is all about. There is no such thing as non-supremacist, egalitarian Judaism. So that's why these people are paraded around as heroes, and is that we all are anxious to escape the labeling of being anti-Semitic. And so we buy what they're selling right away. Oh wow, look at these good Jews that oppose Israel. But here it is. What they're afraid of is that people are going to if the Antichrist hasn't come yet and the boot of the Gentile world is not under the heel of the Jews already, then there's no safety in having this Jewish state. And it turns out they're correct, because what has happened, exactly what they predicted. Here's the whole world looking in with horror.
I got to stop you. We don't. We're going to have music happening any second, so I got to interrupt you. I apologize. Sorry about that. Usually it's oh my gosh, it's 8 minutes till the hour, and we're gonna be done in 4 minutes. So I got to jump in here because everybody's got to get final words. First of all, I want to thank you and Caleb for joining me tonight. Terry, thank you for as always for producing. And all you listeners out there, thank you again for joining us. We will try to adjust this issue again. I don't really want to focus on the Jewish aspects, of course. We were trying to really talk about the Iran thing. But I do appreciate both of your perspectives. One thing I do want to say here real fast, though, Trevor, you may not like this, but back during the time of King David, there was 1 million people living in Israel, and that was the largest concentration of humans on earth. So believe it or not, there's a little bit of that in every one of us alive today. And a lot of us don't want to think about that, but at the same time, the people in your Zionists don't want to admit that either. The last thing they want to think of is that your average person has a little bit of their blood in them. So yeah, if you think about that, then there goes all that superiority nonsense out the window immediately. But okay, Trevor, since I interrupted you, I'm going to give you 1 minute real quick to give us a final statement, what you want to leave everybody with before we go off the air tonight.
Well, I've just been examining the topic of where this evil comes from, and you're talking a lot about Satan and stuff, and if you read Jewish History, Jewish Religion by Professor Israel Shahak, it goes into the Satan worship that's involved in Judaism, and in my opinion, the source of all the problems has really nothing to do with Zionism. I view Zionism as a political movement that ended in 1948. It was the dream of the creation of a Jewish state. Now we have a Jewish state. We're well past the age of Zionism, and we're into the age of globalism, so they use this tactic of having us fight tooth and nail against Zionism because Zionism is a ghost. It's an apparition, and all you can do is shadow box with it because now it's,
Okay, that's over a minute. Caleb, go for it.
I think that the main thing we're facing, it's not any particular religion or ethnic group. The main enemy of humanity right now is the rule of big bankers and the system where a small group of bankers in Western countries, London, in Tel Aviv, Wall Street, where they run the world, and that any force that wants independence and wants to fight for the rule of morality instead of the rule of profits should be supported, and we have to oppose the empire of international capital.
That's it. All right, Caleb, thank you so much. Trevor, thank you. Terry, thank you. All right, end the Fed, hang the Rothschilds. It's very simple. This is Stephen D. Kelly Show, Revolution Radio. Thank you so much for listening. Come back next week. We'll be here again. So, adios, good night, goodbye.